God of War is a story of the gods, giants, elves, dwarves, and races far and wide. Stories of betrayal, power, and vengeance. All races have suffered in some way or another, but there is no race who has taken more suffering than the mortals. From cannibalism to being turned into dark spirits to floods, here is the full story of those you don't see. The story of the mortals of Midgard. Long ago, after Odin killed Ymir, the giant's body created realms, the skies, the water, and everything in between. Except there is no use in making this land with no people to be in it. Odin actually created the mortals, and they sang his praises for it. Documents reveal that the mortals believed this, and thanked Odin for making the two first mortals in Midgard, even begging Odin to send dragons, Balder and Thor, and everything they need to protect them. They praised the gods so much that they would leave offerings for the gods in high places around Midgard. Atreus told us this after the Balder fight when doing the first Frozen puzzle, which Kratos famously responds to him saying, "Men should not pray to monsters." There are a ton of these buckets in high places all over Midgard, and as we destroy them, we get hack silver, which is the currency of them. The mortals also lived in homes close to one another in packs. We see this very briefly just before we see Freya. We shot her boar and chased after it through a settlement. We know it belonged to the mortals because we see a creature that the mortals turn into burst from the inside of one of these shelters, but the mortals did tend to live together. Even though the note to Odin was specifically asking for Balder and Thor to protect them, as Balder and Thor were obviously extremely popular, another popular god that the mortals loved was Njord, Freya's father. Njord had a clan and a whole city dedicated to him. In lore and legends, it's said that the mortals and Njord would eat and drink together and would love to be around one another. Later on in life, we all know that Thor would eventually kill the stone mason, freezing this entire city. However, mortals were not as docile as they might want us to believe, as other mortals would seek power through magical means. Some mortals actually joined a cult, which turns themselves into bear-like creatures. These creatures would take on the form of bears, except they were a lot bigger and had large claws. These creatures and Kratos in the prequel comics would clash with one another and actually give Kratos a challenge. Although Kratos was not equipped with a useful weapon, some of the mortals were actually witches. We also saw in the prequel comic, Atreus and Kratos actually met one of these witches that Faye often took Atreus to. Cults and witches weren't the only power that mortals had. Some mortals were very powerful and they followed a religion. These mortals were known as travelers. According to lore and legends, travelers are people following Odin's religion he created. These warriors' goal is to find a way into Jotunheim. There are many creatures that the mortals also turn into. Like the travelers, there were some mortals who had great combat ability. When some of these mortals die and the Valkyries came to claim their souls, if strong enough, these mortal spirits would actually fight back against the Valkyries, refusing to go with them. Since the Valkyrie can't place them in Helheim or make them a part of Odin's undead army, they are returned back to their bodies in a different form, and these forms are called Draugr. Now, they can return in all shapes and sizes, and these shapes and sizes have different names, like Reavers and many others we saw throughout the game, and we even saw that they can actually have new powers. This is confirmed in lore and legends as well. Even though the mortals did reach out to Odin and ask for protection, it's the gods themselves that will cause them a lot of suffering. Let's talk about some of the tales that the mortals went through and how the effects of Odin's war and the actions of the gods affected the mortals. First, Odin messing up the world and screwing with the Valkyries has caused the dead to return to Earth very rapidly. The appearance of these creatures, along with the desolation and floods, has made the Lake of Nine a terrible place to live. According to Freya in a conversation on the mountain, a lot of these mortals have fled or they are hiding. we actually see a group of mortals that have actually turned to cannibalism. When we get there, one of the first questions we hear them ask is, are they Hellwalkers? Because Hellwalkers are everywhere and they're attacking even the local mortals. However, another one does say that they've gone a long time without meat. And this is probably why they turn to cannibalism, because it's hard for them to hunt for anything. The gods themselves will inflict a ton of pain on the mortals as well. Here are some of the stories we know about. For instance, there was one story of a spirit who drowned, and he believed that Thor was the one that created a flood.
Thunderstorm scattered all 3 of my ships across the lake. I know not what I did to anger Thor, but his judgment was swift and brutal.
And then there's the other story about a family who was dedicated to Thor, and Thor killed them all.
Why do you hate Thor so much?
After my father passed, my mother built the statue to watch over his grave. Imagine our surprise when the god of thunder himself came to offer condolences. At first we were thrilled, but he quickly took advantage of our hospitality. My mother begged him to leave, and Thor, in his drunken rage, killed her. I was left with nothing but grief. Eventually, I lost that as well, and found only rage in its place.
I'm so sorry.
Although the mortals worship the gods, they put offerings of currency everywhere for the gods. The gods constantly take advantage of them, kill them, and destroy the world around them. I would also like to mention that in Tyr's his story going down to his treasure room, there's a bunch of murals while we're on the elevator about Tyr, and there was one image of Tyr either handing down or receiving an object from people who are smaller than him. Now, even though the story was about Tyr going to other mythologies, the fact that Tyr actually treated mortals, even if they're from Midgard or not, he treated them with respect, as we see in this image. So most likely Tyr actually treated the mortals with respect as well, which is a contrast to the other gods. And I love how the God of War 2018 story really kind of set this division between Tyr and the rest of the gods, that Tyr truly was a good god even to the local mortals. And that's going to be it for this video. I wanted to make this video, one, because I like looking into God of War lore around the story of God of War 2018, those deep things that we don't really pay attention to, but I also want to really highlight the suffering of the mortals. The gods are not good in any way, shape, or form, and it baffles me that even though gods will cause so much pain to the mortals will always continue to cherish them in some way, which is kind of fucked up mind control, right? This is why Kratos even says men should not pray to monsters. It's a really, really good saying once you really understand the mortals and their suffering. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know if you want to see more God of War lore, those little tidbits of information that you probably missed. I really do enjoy making these, and thank you so much to Edgar for really helping me out with a lot of this information and helping me organize it all. I'm gonna be out of here. Thank you guys and girls for listening. Deuces.